There's people on the front row, and there ain't never been nobody on the front row when I preach. So, look, I get it, all right? I'm all right with that, okay? We're going to have a special guest this morning, but he's not a guest at all, man. Earl has been part of our church for a couple of years now, and he's been leading in our kids. For about 18 months, he's been teaching our kids, and he does a fantastic job. And this morning is his first sermon to the adults, all right? And so he's coming in here. God's put something on his heart. I've already spent some time with him this week, and y'all, it's going to be good. Like, we met together, and we were looking over the scripture. He said, here's what I found. I was like, man, that was better than anything I've seen in that passage. All right, let's do it. Like, I'm excited this morning. So I hope you're going to encourage him. I hope that you're going to nod with him. I hope that you're going to keep with him. And I hope that if he says something good, you're going to say, man, that's good. You're going to say, that's amen. You're going to say, woo, I like that, all right? So this morning, I want y'all to put your hands together for one of our own. Earl's going to preach to us. Y'all give him a hand, and let's hear what he has to say this morning. God put on his heart.
Woo, quite the introduction there, Mark. I appreciate that, sir. You know, when Mark said it over the pulpit a couple weeks ago, you know, he said, we'll have somebody coming through our service who's going to be bringing the word. And I was like, I wonder who this could be, right? I was looking around like, oh, I wonder who this could be. And lo and behold, here I am. But I'm excited today, guys. You know, I also, when he said it, I was like, man, that'll give me plenty enough time to lose a couple pounds because camera make you look a little fat, right? But as you guys can see, you know, I've been lifting a fork and spoon instead of some iron. I asked my friend, I said, how? You know, I need to lose some weight fast. He said, you got to cut the carbs, bro. I said, that's it? He said, got to cut the carbs, bro. I said, I don't got to, I don't got to lift no weights to go running or nothing. Just got to cut the carbs, bro. But I'm eating double whoppers, you know what I'm saying? So I guess it's a lot of carbs in that, but it's all good. So I'm excited about the word today, not because I'm bringing it, because I'm excited to see what God's going to do from this word today. And we're going to address a familiar passage that a lot of us know and a lot of us don't. But if you don't, it's all good because I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to break it down for you. But it's a story of Lazarus, right? And God did this tremendous thing for Lazarus. He raised him from the dead, right? He brought him back to life. But we aren't going to focus on that today. We aren't going to focus on the miracle today. We aren't going to focus on the miraculous and the crescendo of the story. But we're going to focus on how it was all set up. Because from the very beginning, before Lazarus died, Jesus had a plan. Jesus had a plan. And you know what? If I had to title this, I would call it, I would trust God's plan. And I would say it that way because I want to make it personal to me. You know, sometimes I come to church and I'm like, you know, this message would be great for my friend, my neighbor, my mother, my brother. But you know what? I want to get something out of this for myself. And as I'm talking to you guys today, guarantee I'm talking to myself today as well. So we're going to talk about the story of Lazarus. In the book of John, the 11th chapter, we're going to talk about Lazarus. So it was a guy named Lazarus, very close with Jesus, his sisters Mary and Martha. And Lazarus became very sick, right? And so the good thing is, right, you know this guy named Jesus who has done miraculous things up to this point. Right, you know this healer, you know that this guy is incredible, he's sent from God, and no problem, right? My brother's sick, he's dying, no problem. I got the magic potion, his name is Jesus, right? And so they say, Jesus, Lazarus is sick, your dear friend Lazarus is sick. And Jesus said, okay. He didn't come on time, he didn't come to save him. But let's go ahead and turn with us to John chapter 11, verse 32. We're going to pick up there. Now when Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she fell to her feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit, and he greatly troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, so see how he loved him? But some said, you know, he could have opened this guy's eyes. He healed the blind, right? I seen Jesus spit in this man's eyes and he could see, right? But he wasn't here in time to raise this man from the dead. Jesus wept because he understood and felt their pain and sorrow. God is the God of eternity, but he's also the God of the moment. He doesn't belittle us or dismiss us simply because he knows he's going to bring us out of the situation. Instead, he walks with us. He feels with us in our deepest hurt. Mary, Martha, and the crowd have thought Jesus was late, but how can the one who can do anything, even bring you back from the death, be late? A couple of weeks ago, I shared that I lost my cousin. And so previous to that, a couple of months before, I went to see him. I went back home to Philadelphia, right? The greatest city in America, right? America's birthplace, right, guys? Yep. Greatest city in America, right? So I went home to see my cousin, and I was there for just to visit some family. And I saw my cousin, and he would talk about audio equipment and cars, and that was his interest. And I said to him, he said to me, "Little man." He's the only one who calls me little man. Everybody else, Big Earl, Big E, big guy, right? He's the only one. Hey, little man. So it's all good. He was a little bigger than I was, but he said, "Hey, little man, I got the surgery coming up, and I'm scared, right? I'm fearful. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm fearful." We had a heart condition, right? He had an artificial heart. He had to get that machine replaced. And I said the best words that could come across my lips. I said, "Cuz, everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right," right? That's what you say. If somebody says, "I'm scared, man," everything is going to be all right. Well, there was some complications with the surgery, right? And his life just began to go away. But I tell you what, my cousin accepted Jesus, and I was hurting. It hurt me. That hurt. I say, my cousin's not supposed to pass at 42 years old. He's not supposed to go, but that hurt me. But I know one thing. He's with God. He had an artificial heart here on earth. I know that he's living and breathing and moving. Everything is all good with E. Man, he made it to glory. He beat me there. He beat me to see Jesus. And I want to also put a plug in. A lot of us as Christians, we say we believe God. We sing about it, right? We stomp and clap. I believe, I believe, I believe. But do you believe, right? Do you believe? Do you believe? In verse 40, we'll go to verse 40. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted his eyes and said, "Father, thank you that you heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I said this on the account of the people standing around me, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said these things, he cried out a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had died came out. His hands and feet were bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped in cloth. Jesus told them, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, had come with Mary and had seen what he did and believed in him. Do you believe? In verse 26, in verse 6, Jesus also asked Martha if she believed. He asked, "Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you have faith? I will trust God, but do you believe?" Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead that day. But insert your situation. What's something you're trusting God for? What's something you're hoping God will do for you? Right? Is it your family, relationships, finances? What's something you're trusting God for today? And do you believe that he'll do it? I say it all, I believe, right? I'm a good Christian. I believe God will do it. I believe God will handle this for me. I believe God will do this and will bring me out. But do you believe? Do you trust God enough to handle something that's so precious to you? Do you trust God enough to let go? Do you trust God enough with something so precious, your family members, health, your finances? It's hard, right? It's hard. When you tested that overdraft protection a little too much, right? You just keep swiping away. You're like, man, I need a full tank of gas. I'm going to just use credit because they're just going to take $1 out and I can fill my tank up, right? Anybody ever did that? That's just me. Oh, man, that's all right. I tell you it works. It's a placeholder. You just put $1, credit into your zip code, boom, there you go, right? But do you believe? Do you believe enough to continue to give it to God when you don't have it? That's hard. I don't know about you guys, but that's hard. God, I just paid all my bills. I don't have nothing left. But do you believe? Do you believe God will do it? Do you believe it? So we're going to go to the beginning. God set this whole thing up. Jesus set this whole thing up, right? His best friend died. Lazarus died. But Jesus had a plan from the very beginning. Let's go to verse 4. But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Verse 14. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I'm glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go with him." The Bible says that I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare, not evil, to give you future and hope. Do you believe? God set this thing up from the very beginning. He knew that Lazarus had died. He said he's going to use this to glorify himself. You know, I'm a firm believer, and sometimes we go through things that we don't really realize why we're going through them. We don't, right? We don't connect the dots. But I do believe that sometimes we go through things not for ourselves, but for somebody else. Right? If you've never gone through anything hard, if you never had anything rough, how can you tell somebody who come across you and says, hey, I'm going through this? What do? How can you help them? You just pray with them? Yes, that's great. But can you relate? Can you connect? Jesus set this whole thing up. We saw the death and hurt only to realize that was a part of the plan. Over the past couple of months, it's been a challenge with the cousin. A few months later, right before my cousin passed, my father got sick, heart condition, right? A lot of things going on, school, right? I'm trying to be the best husband I can be the best father I can be. Some big decisions coming up, right? I got this message coming up, and I said, God, I'm mentally drained. I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to turn. I don't know who else I can talk to. Who can relate to me? But do I believe? I stand here before you telling you to believe. I stand here before you telling you to trust God's plan, that God has it all worked out. But do I believe? Did I never go through anything? I believe in Jesus. I believe that he's able to do it. I believe that he's able to do it. And I just want to say, don't be afraid to pray with someone and also to help them get the resources that they need. You know, a lot of times we trust God and we believe in God, but we say, you know, God's got it. We never go seek help. I remember a couple of years ago, as any young couple would, right? They told me that marriage would be great, right? They said, Earl, when I was growing up, Earl, marriage is where it's at, right? Marriage is the best thing since Nutella, right? I didn't know what Nutella was until a couple of years ago, right? I was working at Sam's Club. Girl was like, excuse me, sir, do you have Nutella? I was like, whoa, man, hold on, slow down. What are you asking me for? Do you have Nutella? I said, man, please, slow down. Can you tell me what you're looking for, man? Do you have Nutella, sir? I don't think we carry that. You got to go to Home Depot or something like that because I never heard of this Nutella thing, right? Until a couple years ago, my wife was like, you want some Nutella? I was like, this is what we definitely had Nutella. I just didn't know. No idea what it was. But they told me marriage would be this tremendous thing, right? And then you get married and you're like, man, this is a lot harder than I thought. This is an uphill battle. And so a couple years ago, right, my wife said, hey, I think we should seek counseling. I think we should go get help, right? I think we should do this thing that I never seen anybody before me do. We should go get help. You know what I said? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why did I say that? Because I just hoped, right? I just hoped. I had said, Jesus is going to work it out. It's all good. God's going to work it out. It's all good. He can do anything, right? But as we're praying and as we're believing God, don't be afraid to get help. If the help is right in front of you, don't be afraid to get help. I was in the Navy, man, and this guy said, Earl, I want to thank you. I said, what for, man? I didn't do anything in particular. He said, Earl, there would be times that I would sit in my room staring at a loaded gun, trying to figure out reasons why I should not pull the trigger. I said, wow. What did I do? He said, man, you cared for me. You loved me. You took me to your house. You took me around your family. You gave me something nobody else ever did. You just loved me while I was here. I said, well, man, that's deep. All I did was invite you over to get some black-eyed peas. That's all. If I knew black-eyed peas were going to change your life, brother, I would have been invited you over, right? But it's the simple things like that. Trust in God. Trust in God's plan. As you go through these things, trust God's plan. Trust God's plan. Believe God's plan. Believe that he will do it. In the book of James, it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." As we go through things, guys, it's going to happen, right? Just like marriage, when you trust Christ, it's not easy. Things are going to come your way. Like, man, I never experienced this. I never knew I struggled with this. I never knew these things were an issue for me. But just know God is with us through these things. Just as he was with Mary and Martha as their brother faded away and Jesus didn't show up, even missed the funeral, right? Jesus showed up 4 days later like, "Hey, guys, I'm here." Like, Jesus, if only you had been here. If only you were here to save us. If only you were here, God, when my finances were ruined. If only you were here, God, when my children were going crazy. If only you were here, God, when my marriage fell. If only you were right here with me, God. This would not have happened to me, right? Jesus is with us this entire time. Jesus knows exactly what we're going through. He's right there with us. He's right there with us, guys. If you trust God's plan. If you believe he said he can do what he said he'll do. And if you supplement all those things with getting some help, talk to somebody, right? So here's what I want you guys to do today. Trust God's plan, but I want you to think about something that you're trusting God with. Think about something you're trusting God with. Anything. Think about something you're trusting God with. We have these connect cards in front of you. I want you to write that down. Whatever it is, even if you're not here, if you go home, even if you don't do it right now, put it on a piece of paper, jot it down, write it, whatever it is, your finances, your marriages, your children, your relationships, your jobs, whatever it is, write it down. What are you trusting God for? And I want you to turn that thing in. When the offering plate comes around a little later in the service, I want you to turn that in. And by turning that in, I want you to turn it over to God. Whatever that is. If you don't do it now, do it later. Whatever that is, we want you to put on that connect card, because by you doing that and by you putting that on that connect card, know that somebody is praying for you. Know that someone is petitioning the Father for that thing. Whatever it is, whatever you trust God for, put it down on that connect card. Put it down on the connect card. Turn it over to Jesus. Turn it over to God. What are you trusting God for today? What do you believe God can do today in your life? Maybe it's your salvation. Maybe you never experienced Jesus. Maybe you never turned your life over to God. And you don't know about it, right? God, I don't know. I see a lot of Christians out here and they say bad things about me. They do horrible things to me. What do you believe? Write it on the card. Will you guys pray with me?